play right, cause they can't miss. All about the game, that's a cold switch. Serving up the truth, call it ruthless. Tune in and get your fix from Blake and Vish Sports.
Big Sunday night game, the Ravens versus the Chiefs, or as the media's been hyping up, Lamar versus Mahomes. And coming into this, the Chiefs have been 3-0 against Lamar-led Ravens teams, beat them a couple times in the regular season and have had really good success against them. But it might be time, Vish, for the narrative to end, and that is the Lamar Jackson can't win a big game narrative. Now, we've talked about this last year as well, but Vish, do you think that this narrative needs to be ended now, or is there still some wiggle room for people to say that he can't win a big game?
I think there will be wiggle room because with Lamar Jackson's, the goalposts are always moved. I mean, ever since we've been streaming for, I think, almost a year now, about 9 months. And we've probably done this topic like 5 times. And each time people will say, oh, he didn't win this game like this. He didn't do this like this. He didn't win the playoff game or whatever. And each time it's like, he just keeps checking every box. He just keeps playing so well, and people just keep coming at him. I think it can be finally put to rest. I mean, Sunday night against Patrick Mahomes, who's never lost in September, never thrown an interception in September, and he played unbelievable. And for Lamar Jackson to basically be by far the best player on the field, I thought it was outstanding. I mean, I don't know what else I can say other than this narrative really, it's stupid. I feel like I say it's stupid every time, and yet here we are having this discussion again. But the unfortunate thing for me is that, or the fortunate thing for me is that when you actually watch the games and you see how good Lamar Jackson is, you get to find out that, hey, this narrative is BS. And I thought Lamar Jackson was fantastic on Sunday. I thought it was maybe the best performance of his career, though he's had a lot of really, really good performances in his career. But I mean, you just go down the list of what he did running, what he did throwing. I mean, he threw the ball unbelievably well. The 2 interceptions were a little bit rough. Both were, I mean, he missed Hollywood Brown early for the touchdown. Then he threw the pick 6, and then he had the second interception over the middle thrown into triple coverage. Bad decisions all around. But at the same time, the throws that he did make, I mean, the jump pass to Hollywood Brown, that was unbelievable for him to find Hollywood Brown in that play. And then his running overall, and then John Harbaugh having the confidence to run him on 4th down and 2 from their own, I think it was their own 30-something. I think the impressive thing about that is, to me, 20 times out of 20, especially when you have a quarterback like Lamar Jackson, that's the correct decision. If you remember the 2007 AFC Championship game, Bill Belichick had a 4th and 4 from I think the New England 46, and he punted the ball back to Peyton Manning, and Peyton Manning took the Colts down the field, scored a touchdown, and that was all she wrote to that ball game. And I think looking back, even in 2007, the reason this decision reminded me of it is because you have these 2 phenomenal quarterbacks in Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, similar to Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and Belichick should have put the ball in Brady's hands on 4th and 4. And if Brady gets the first down, you win the game. Because if you give the ball back to Manning, if you give the ball back to Mahomes, you're going to lose no matter what. So I think from that standpoint, it reminded me of that. And I think they made the right decision to go forward. Even if they didn't get it, it would have been the right decision. And Lamar Jackson made it happen because he's just that good. He's elite quarterback. He's a big-time football player, and he wins big games.
I thought it was interesting because the beginnings of that play, it didn't look like he was going to make it either. Like it looked like he was going to get stopped short, and he actually did make it, which was obviously worked out in the end for them, and it was a great call. I think even just generally on that point too, like you remember what the Chiefs did against the Browns last year in the AFC divisional game where Chad Henne threw the pass. I believe the ball was either on their side or it was near the 50-yard line, and they still went for it too. So again, it seems like, generally speaking, when you have a great quarterback or Chad Henne, you can just go for these type of things and have it work out. So that was great to see. And then I did want to bring up one other thing too with Lamar on this, and I still think it holds true from last season. They still don't have great receivers. Hollywood Brown's been doing a lot better as of recently. He's been on a little pretty good streak here, but the O-line starting Villanueva at either left tackle or right tackle just is not cutting it. It is just not cutting it. We saw what happened Monday night against Mad Max Crosby, and I still think he's probably leading the league in pressures because of that one game.
He is.
I wouldn't be surprised. He had a lot in the first game, and then just this past week, I want to say Villanueva played left tackle, and it's just a disaster. It simply doesn't work. I don't see a way that they're going to be able to consistently have him as a tackle, in space by himself and not be just getting pressured nonstop. Like that, just realistically, it's not going to work.
I agree with you. I mean, Villanueva hasn't been good for the past 2 years now. I know a lot of people, because he's a big name and he was a good left tackle a few years back for Pittsburgh, and he was a good player for a little while. People thought, for example, the Niners should let Trent Williams walk and sign him because of the price difference. And I push back on that heavy because Trent Williams is the best tackle in football. Villanueva, is a replacement level offensive tackle, and we're seeing that. And I think actually this season the talent around Lamar Jackson is getting exposed. Though Owe looks fantastic, and if Owe continues in this trajectory, it might add some in the front seven, but the Baltimore Ravens front seven is not good in terms of getting pressure on the quarterback. That's why Wink Martindale has to blitz so much. And when they didn't blitz against Kansas City, really outside of Owe, Calais Campbell at times can still get pressure, but they weren't getting consistent pressure on Patrick Mahomes. They just did something that was totally un-Baltimore Raven-like, which wasn't send 6 and play cover 0. It was more so, let's play a little more zone coverage. Let's play a little softer. Let's be creative with twists, hunts when we send people and all of that. But Owe looks fantastic. He might be the defensive rookie of the year so far. But without Marcus Peters, this secondary can be had. I know that Arnett had a pretty good game, but I think it's Anthony Arnett. Is that number 23? I'm blanking on his name.
For the Ravens, you're saying?
Yes. It's Anthony. It's Anthony Averett. It's Anthony Averett. That's who it is. Not Arnett. Arnett. They both have that reddish kind of dye in their hair. Damon Arnett has it too, so I mixed them up. But he actually had a pretty good game in coverage. But to me, overall, I look at their secondary, I don't think it's very good outside of Marlon Humphrey. And I think what they did against the Chiefs is going to have to be their game plan because they can't pressure the quarterback consistently, which is why they run cover 0 so much and all of that. I mean, anybody who saw the Manning's broadcast, Manning's like, oh, what do you think the Ravens are running against the Raiders? They're probably running cover 0 every play. And they were, because they can't get pressure on the quarterback consistently. So they've been forced to do that. And they've been lucky because Humphrey and Peters are so good that they can put them a little bit on islands and give them those challenging assignments and get away. But I think Baltimore's defense, it's really not that talented. It's really not as good as I think people think. People think it's a top 10 defense because Baltimore has pedigree and a culture of having a top 10 defense. I wouldn't be shocked if it's a bottom 15, bottom 10 defense in the NFL. Outside of Humphrey, Owe has some talent. Queen has been inconsistent. Calais Campbell still has a little bit. Deshaun Elliott's a really, really good player. But outside of those guys, I think there's a lot of depth and talent lacking on the Baltimore Ravens defense. 2, you talked about Villanueva. I still think there's something lacking with the receivers. I mean, Sammy Watkins has been okay for them. Mark Andrews is consistently pretty good. Hollywood Brown has been much better than how he's played how he played last year, but still overall, I wish there was something more for Lamar Jackson. Maybe Bateman will be that guy when he comes back from injury. Mm-hmm. We shall see. And then finally, you talked about the offensive line. It's really not that good. They don't have running backs. All their running backs are hurt. This team has been competitive in both those games because they have Lamar Jackson. And to me, that's the hallmark of a guy who's a top 6 quarterback, top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Because the idea with Lamar Jackson is that people don't think he can, quote unquote, carry a team because he does it with both his legs and his arm rather than just his arm. So it doesn't look like Mahomes when he's carrying the Chiefs, But really, he's especially the last 2 years or so, the Ravens, I think talent has been overstated around him. They've really been competitive because they have Lamar Jackson and other teams don't.
Yeah, I mean, you slot in any running back on that team and they instantly average 5 yards a carry. And it's not because that their O-line is just great at blocking, but how much stress he's putting on the defensive line, especially the guys that are contained when they're running a read option. It's really marvelous how like Devontae Freeman, Latavius Murray get signed off of the streets and look great. Tyson Williams was their third running back, maybe even fourth because Justice Hill got injured too. But it doesn't matter who's back there; they end up looking great. And then it's mainly because Lamar Jackson's just stressing out the defensive ends and whole D line. And then even with inside the pocket too, like you can never leave him unchecked. It's almost a dangerous running man if you're blitzing four and like if there's a hole that opens up, he's running. He's getting like at least 15 yards because he's that fast.
And I think his throwing from the pocket actually gets really it's constantly underrated to me. I think he's pretty shown that he's an above average decision maker from the pocket, and he's also an above average thrower from the pocket. Maybe he's not Mahomes, but there's a reason Mahomes people are already talking about him amongst the Rodgers, Brady's, that type quarterback tier because through 3 years, Mahomes might be the best we've ever seen. He certainly has an argument for it. Lamar somewhere close. He's not there, but I think that his throwing doesn't get talked about enough. He's a good thrower. He's really accurate, and we saw a lot of glimpses of his throwing in that game. It wasn't just his running that got him in that game. His running was fantastic, but he got them back. He got them back into that game and basically came back on that 11-point deficit with his arm, and he kept making throw after throw. He's just a big time playmaker.
Definitely. But I think that wraps up Lamar and how great he was.